Have you ever been so alone that the silence feels alive? Picture this. You're deep in the wilderness, miles from anyone, in a place no one's supposed to be. You think you're safe, marveling at the stars, until you see something move in the dark. Something that shouldn't be there. This is my story, and trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. Stick around, because it's one of those experiences that'll make you question what's really out there. This happened in the fall of 2018. I'd been itching for a solo adventure, something to clear my head after a rough year. Work stress, a breakup, the usual life mess. I needed to get away. I'd read about an abandoned astronomical observatory in the Pacific Northwest, tucked away in a national forest, about 3 hours from my place in Oregon. It was built in the 70s for stargazing, but had been left to rot after funding dried up. The idea of climbing up to this forgotten relic, surrounded by nothing but trees and sky, felt like the perfect escape. I should mention it was off limits. The Forest Service had deemed it unsafe. Decaying floors, rusted supports, the works. Trespassing could get you fined, but I'd scoured forums and Reddit threads. Most folks who'd been there said it was still standing, though the last detailed post was from 2015. The photos showed a weathered but sturdy tower with a domed roof, perched on a ridge with views for miles. I figured if it wasn't safe, I'd camp nearby. I was ready for anything, or so I thought. I parked my Jeep in a pull-off near an old logging road, hidden by ferns and moss. With a backpack stuffed with 3 days' worth of gear, tent, stove, sleeping bag, and a star chart for kicks, I locked up and started hiking. There was no trail, just a faint path from decades-old tire tracks. I relied on a handheld GPS and a compass, weaving through pines and underbrush. The forest was dense, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and cedar. It was a 6-hour trek, and the deeper I went, the wilder it got. Fallen logs, steep ravines, and patches of mud that sucked at my boots. I was alone, completely cut off, and honestly, it felt liberating. No notifications, no noise, just me and the woods. By late afternoon, I was beat, but buzzing with anticipation. The trees parted, and there it was. The observatory, a squat concrete tower with a rusted dome, sitting on a rocky outcrop. It looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. Paint peeling, vines creeping up the walls, but still standing tall. I circled it, checking the foundation. The concrete felt solid, no cracks. The metal ladder to the observation deck was bolted to the side, flecked with rust but firm when I tugged it. I gave it a cautious climb, wincing at every creak. At the top, I stepped onto a narrow platform circling the dome. The view stole my breath. Rolling hills of green stretched to the horizon, untouched by roads or lights. It was like standing at the edge of the world. Inside, the observatory was a time capsule. The dome had a slit for the old telescope, now gone. The room was maybe 200 square feet, with a warped wooden floor, a rusted metal chair, and a built-in desk covered in dust. Cobwebs draped the corners, and the windows, cracked but intact, offered a 360-degree panorama. Graffiti from past visitors was scratched into the walls. J&T 2012. The stars are watching. It was eerie but cool, like I'd stumbled into someone else's story. I set up camp inside, rolling out my sleeping bag on an inflatable mat and firing up my stove for some instant noodles. As the sun dipped below the hills, I sat on the platform, watching the sky turn gold, then purple. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl. I felt small but alive, like I'd found something sacred. Night fell fast. It was a clear evening, perfect for stargazing. So I pulled out my binoculars and leaned against the railing. The Milky Way was a bright smear across the sky, more stars than I'd ever seen. I was lost in it, tracing constellations, when I noticed something odd. A faint glow moving through the trees below, maybe a quarter mile away. It wasn't a flashlight. It was warm, flickering, like a lantern or a flame. My first thought was another hiker. But who'd be out here in the middle of nowhere, with no trail? And why a flame instead of a headlamp? The light wove between the trees, slow and deliberate, like someone pacing. I watched, heart picking up, trying to make sense of it. Campers, maybe? But the glow was too steady, too purposeful. After a few minutes, it vanished, like it had been snuffed out. I waited, scanning the dark, but it didn't reappear. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a local with a weird hobby, or my eyes playing tricks. Still, I felt exposed up there, silhouetted against the stars. I went inside, locked the dome's creaky door, more for peace of mind than security, and tried to settle down. The wind picked up, rattling the windows, and I lay in my sleeping bag, replaying the light in my head. Was it closer than I thought? Was someone watching me right now? I laughed it off, but the unease lingered, like a splinter in my mind. Eventually, I dozed off, lulled by the hum of the forest. I don't know how long I slept, maybe a couple of hours. But I woke with a jolt, my heart pounding. The wind had died, and the observatory was dead silent. I lay still, straining to hear what had woken me. Then it came. A soft, metallic clank from the ladder outside. I froze, hoping I'd imagined it, but it came again. Clank, clank, like someone was climbing, slow and careful. Each sound sent a spike of adrenaline through me. I sat up, fumbling for my flashlight, my mind racing. Was it the person with the light? A ranger checking for trespassers? Or something worse? I unzipped my sleeping bag, trying to stay quiet, and crept to the window. The forest was pitch black, no moonlight to help. The clanking stopped, then started again. Faster now, like they were almost at the top. I grabbed my backpack, instinct I guess, and eased open the door to the platform. The cold air hit me as I stepped out, flashlight shaking in my hand. I aimed it at the ladder, but no one was there. The rungs gleamed dully, empty. I stood, confused, my breath fogging in the night air. Had I dreamed it? Then, a new sound, a faint scrape like boots on concrete, coming from the other side of the platform. I swung the flashlight around, heart in my throat, but the beam caught nothing but the dome's curve. The scrape came again, closer, deliberate. Someone, or something, was circling me. I backed toward the ladder, my mind screaming to run but terrified of what might be waiting below. I called out, "Who's there?" My voice cracked, sounding small in the vast dark. No answer, just another scrape, now right behind the dome. I couldn't take it. I slung my backpack on and started down the ladder, gripping the cold metal so hard my hands ached. Every creak of the rungs felt like a gunshot in the silence. Halfway down, I heard it, a low, guttural sound, like a chuckle from above. I looked up, and for a split second, I saw a shape lean over the platform, a dark silhouette, featureless against the stars. I nearly lost my grip, my legs shaking as I scrambled down faster. When my boots hit the ground, I ran, not caring about the branches clawing my face or the rocks underfoot. I flicked on my flashlight, the beam bouncing wildly, and checked my GPS. The logging road was 5 miles away, a brutal hike in the dark, but I wasn't staying. As I crashed through the woods, I kept glancing back, expecting to see that flickering light, or worse. My mind churned with questions. Who was up there? Why didn't they speak? Was it a prank, a squatter, or something I couldn't explain? The chuckle haunted me. It wasn't friendly, but it wasn't entirely human either. I thought about all the stories I'd read online, about people vanishing in national forests, about things that don't belong in the wild. I'd always dismissed them as urban legends, but now, alone with my heartbeat pounding in my ears, they felt real. The hike back took hours. My legs burned, my lungs ached, but I didn't stop. Every snap of a twig or rustle in the bushes made me swing my flashlight, but I saw nothing, just trees and shadows. Still, I felt watched, like the forest itself was holding its breath. About halfway, I heard something that stopped me cold, a distant sound, like a low hum or chant, drifting through the trees. It was faint, almost swallowed by the wind, but it didn't belong here. I didn't stick around to figure it out. I pushed on, checking my GPS obsessively, until I saw the faint outline of my Jeep through the dawn's first light. I threw my gear in, locked the doors, and peeled out, my tires spitting gravel. As I drove, the adrenaline faded, leaving a hollow ache. I kept replaying the night, the light, the clanks, the silhouette, that chuckle. Part of me wanted answers, but another part just wanted to forget. I reported it to the Forest Service anonymously, saying I'd heard weird noises near the observatory. They said they'd check it out, but I never heard back. I didn't expect to. Places like that, they keep their secrets. Looking back, I think about why I went out there. I was running from my problems, chasing some romantic idea of solitude. But the wilderness doesn't care about your baggage. It's indifferent, ancient, and sometimes it feels alive in ways we can't understand. I haven't been back to that forest, and I don't plan to. But sometimes, when I'm stargazing in my backyard, I catch myself scanning the dark, wondering if something's looking back. If you're thinking about exploring some forgotten place, be careful. The views might be worth it, but you never know what's waiting in the shadows. What if you found a place so hidden, it felt like it didn't want to be found? Imagine camping by a lake so remote, it's not on any map, where the only sounds are your own heartbeat and the whispers of the trees. You're alone, or so you think, until you realize someone or something has been watching you the whole time. This is my story, and it's one that still haunts me. Stay with me, because what happened out there will make you rethink ever camping alone again. This was the summer of 2019. I was 28, living in Colorado, and going through one of those phases where I just needed to disconnect. Life was loud, work deadlines, family drama, social media noise. I craved quiet, the kind you only get when you're miles from civilization. My uncle used to tell me about a hidden lake in the Rockies, a spot he'd found as a kid fishing with his dad. He called it the lake nobody knew, because it wasn't on any maps, not even Google. He'd shown me how to get there years ago, and I'd been back a few times since, always alone. It was my sanctuary, a place where the world couldn't touch me. The lake was about a 3-hour drive from Denver, followed by a 2-hour hike through dense forest. No signs, no trails, just a faint path of packed dirt that only locals might notice. I packed my truck with camping gear, tent, sleeping bag, cooler, fishing rod, and a journal to scribble my thoughts. The plan was simple: 3 days of fishing, reading, and resetting my head. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. That was part of the appeal. No one to check in with, no one to answer to. I reached the trailhead by noon, parked under a canopy of pines, and started hiking. The air was crisp, scented with sap and earth, and the only sounds were my boots crunching on pine needles and the occasional bird call. The path wound through towering evergreens, over rocky streams, and past boulders mossed over with age. It was tough going, lugging a 40-pound pack, but the thought of that glassy lake kept me moving. By the time I reached it, the sun was high, glinting off the water like a mirror. The lake was small, maybe a quarter-mile across, ringed by dense trees and granite cliffs. It was as beautiful as I remembered, untouched and silent, like it belonged to another time. I set up camp on a flat patch of dirt near the shore, pitching my tent and building a fire ring with stones. The first day was perfect. I fished for trout, caught a couple for dinner, and sat by the water with a book, letting the stillness soak in. As the sun set, I built a fire and watched the stars come out, brighter than any city sky. I felt like the only person on Earth, and for the first time in months, I was at peace. That night, I slept like a rock, lulled by the gentle lap of the lake and the crackle of dying embers. The second day started the same. I woke with the dawn, brewed coffee on my camp stove, and spent the morning exploring the lake's edge. I walked its perimeter, sketching the cliffs in my journal and collecting smooth pebbles for no reason other than they felt nice in my hand. The solitude was intoxicating. I didn't miss my phone or people or anything. But around midday, something shifted. On my third lap around the lake, I noticed something in the dirt near the tree line. Footprints. Not shoe prints, but bare human footprints, pressed deep into the soft earth. I stopped, heart skipping. I'd been walking this same loop for hours and hadn't seen them before. They were impossible to miss. Clear, fresh, with distinct toes and arches. I crouched to examine them, my stomach tightening. They weren't mine. I was wearing hiking boots, and these were unmistakably barefoot. The lake's edge here was rocky, not a place you'd wade or swim, and I hadn't seen anyone in the water. I scanned the tree line, half expecting to see someone watching, but it was just trees, silent and still. The prints led from the woods to the lake's edge, like someone had stood there, looking out, then turned back into the forest. My first thought was a hiker, maybe someone as crazy as me who knew this place. But barefoot, in this terrain, with sharp rocks and pine cones everywhere? It didn't add up. I followed the prints a few steps into the trees, but they faded where the ground hardened. The forest felt different now, heavier, like it was holding its breath. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was an old print, or an animal. But the unease stuck. I kept walking, glancing over my shoulder, hyper-aware of every rustle or snap in the woods. The lake, once my refuge, now felt like a trap, its beauty hiding something I couldn't see. Back at camp, I tried to shake it off. I cooked lunch, wrote in my journal, and kept my fire going as the sun dipped low. But the footprints gnawed at me. Who was out here? And why hadn't I seen them? Were they still nearby, watching from the trees? I kept scanning the forest, looking for movement, but saw nothing. As dusk settled, the air grew chilly, and I piled more wood on the fire, its glow a small comfort against the darkening woods. I sat close to the flames, my pocket knife in hand. Not much of a weapon, but it made me feel less helpless. I was poking at the fire when I heard it. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the trees. My head snapped up, and I gripped the knife tighter. The sound was unmistakable. Crunch, pause, crunch. Like someone walking on pine needles, maybe 50 feet away. I stood, heart pounding, and stared into the dark beyond the firelight. "Hello," I called, my voice louder than I meant. No answer, just the footsteps, closer now, circling the edge of my camp. I grabbed my flashlight, its beam cutting through the night, but it caught only trees and shadows. Then, they stepped into the light. Two figures, a man and a woman, side by side, stopping just where the fire's glow faded. They were tall, their clothes dark and worn, blending into the night. I couldn't see their faces clearly. The firelight danced across their silhouettes, but their eyes glinted, locked on me. They stood unnaturally still, like statues, and I noticed their feet. Bare, pale, and caked with dirt. These were the ones who left the prints. "Hey, can I help you?" I said, trying to sound calm, but my voice shook. The woman flinched, then bolted into the woods, her footsteps fading fast. The man didn't move. He just stared, his head tilted slightly, like he was studying me. I repeated, "What do you want?" But he stayed silent, his gaze unblinking. The fire popped, and I saw his lips curl into a faint, unsettling smile. Then, without a word, he turned and walked into the trees, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. I stood frozen, my flashlight trembling in my hand. That smile, it wasn't friendly or mocking. It was wrong, like it didn't belong on a human face. My mind raced. Were they campers? Locals? Something else? The lake was too remote for random visitors, and their silence, their bare feet, their sudden appearance. It felt staged, like they'd been waiting for me. I couldn't stay. I started packing, hands shaking as I stuffed my sleeping bag and stove into my pack. I didn't care about leaving a clean camp. I just wanted out. I kicked dirt over the fire to smother it, grabbed my pack, and headed for the path. The woods were pitch black, my flashlight barely piercing the dark. Every step felt like a gamble, like something was just out of sight, watching. I kept my knife out, useless as it was, and checked my compass to stay on course. The hike back was 2 hours, but it felt like forever. The forest was silent. No crickets, no owls, just my ragged breathing and the crunch of my boots. About 30 minutes in, I heard it again. Footsteps, fast and light, somewhere to my left. I swung my flashlight, but saw nothing. The steps stopped, then started again, now on my right, closer. They were quiet, too quiet, like bare feet on soft earth. My heart hammered as I picked up my pace, nearly tripping over roots. "Leave me alone," I shouted, more to bolster myself than to scare them. No response, but the footsteps kept coming. Short bursts, like they were darting between trees, tracking me. I don't know how I kept going. Fear was a weight, pressing on my chest, but stopping wasn't an option. The footsteps followed me for what felt like miles, always just out of reach, never close enough to see. Once, I thought I heard a whisper, a low, guttural sound. Not words, just noise. It sent a chill down my spine, and I ran, my pack slamming against my back until my lungs burned. The path finally widened, and I saw my truck through the trees, glinting in the faint starlight. I fumbled with my keys, threw my pack in, and locked the doors, gasping for air. As I started the engine, I looked back at the trail. For a moment, I thought I saw movement. 2 shapes at the edge of the trees, motionless, watching. I didn't wait to be sure. I floored it, the truck bouncing over ruts, and didn't stop until I hit the highway. The whole drive home, I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see those figures in the road. When I got back to my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it. The footprints, their silence, that smile, the whispers. I looked up the lake online, digging through forums and old maps, but found nothing. No record, no stories, like it didn't exist. I called my uncle, hoping for answers, but he just said, "Some places don't like visitors." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. I reported it to the Park Service, saying I'd seen suspicious people in the area, but they brushed it off. Too remote to check, they said. That lake was my escape, my safe place. But it's gone now, tainted by whatever I met out there. I think about it too much, about who they were, why they were barefoot, what they wanted. Were they human, or something older, tied to the land? The Rockies are full of stories, missing hikers, strange lights, things that don't add up. I used to laugh at them, but not anymore. I haven't camped alone since, and I don't know if I ever will. If you're out there, chasing solitude in the wild, be careful. Some places hold secrets, and not all of them want to stay hidden. What would you do if you were alone in the middle of nowhere and someone, or something, knocked on your door in the dead of night? Picture this. You're parked in a forest so remote it feels like the edge of the world. It's just you, your van, and the rain, until a voice breaks the silence, claiming to be help. But every instinct screams, it's a lie. This is my story, and it's one that still keeps me up at night. Stick around, because what happened out there will make you think twice about camping alone. This happened in the spring of 2020. I was 26, living out of a converted Sprinter van, chasing freedom on the open road. I'd quit my desk job in Seattle the year before, tired of the grind, and decided to see the country. Van life was my escape, a way to trade fluorescent lights for starry skies and crowded streets for empty trails. I'd been traveling the West Coast for months, from the redwoods of California to the rugged shores of Oregon, always sticking to back roads and remote campsites. There's something about being alone in the wild that feels raw and real, like you're part of something bigger. Sure, it could get creepy at night, but I always felt safer in the middle of nowhere than in some sketchy city parking lot. I was in northern Idaho, winding through the Panhandle National Forest, a place known for its endless pines and lonely roads. It was late April, and the forest was alive with the scent of wet earth and new growth, but it rained non-stop, a cold, relentless drizzle that turned the dirt roads to mud. I'd been hopping between campsites, staying a few days at each, living off my propane stove and a stack of paperbacks. That day, I turned off the highway onto a narrow Forest Service road, the kind barely wide enough for my van. My map showed a few pull-off spots, but I wanted something deeper, more secluded. After a bumpy 20-minute drive, I found it, a wide clearing at the road's end, surrounded by towering cedars and ferns, with a fire pit of weathered stones in the center. It wasn't scenic, just raw and quiet, exactly what I wanted. I leveled the van, popped the side door for air, and settled in. The rain kept me inside most of the day. I cooked a pot of chili on my stove, the steam fogging the windows, and listened to the patter of drops on the roof. As the sun set, the forest darkened, the trees swallowing what little light remained. I cracked a small window near the back of the van to let out the cooking heat and curled up on my bed with a laptop, streaming a sci-fi show I'd downloaded. The rain was a steady hum, soothing in its own way, and I felt cozy, like I'd carved out a tiny piece of home in the wild. I lost track of time, the glow of the screen pulling me in until something snapped me out of it. A flicker of light on my laptop, like a reflection from outside. I froze, heart kicking up. The light wasn't there anymore, but it hadn't moved away. It just vanished, like someone had flipped a switch. I turned to the cracked window, squinting into the dark. The rain was heavier now, blurring everything beyond the glass, and I saw nothing but the faint outline of trees. My first thought was headlights, maybe another camper pulling into a nearby spot. But the light had come from the wrong direction, not the road, but the dense forest behind me. I told myself it was a trick of the rain, maybe lightning, though there'd been no thunder. Still, my gut twisted. I closed the laptop, plunging the van into near darkness, and listened. Just rain, nothing else. I checked the other windows, peering through the shades, but saw no lights, no movement. The forest felt too quiet now, like it was waiting. I tried to shake it off. I'd been alone for months, and you get used to weird noises or shadows playing tricks. I turned on a small LED lantern, its soft glow calming my nerves, and went back to my show, keeping the volume low. Every few minutes, I'd glance at the windows or pause to listen, half expecting to hear something. A branch snapping, footsteps, anything. The rain was too loud to be sure, its clatter on the roof drowning out subtler sounds. I told myself I was being paranoid, that no one would be out here in this weather, especially not in the middle of the forest. By 10 p.m., I decided to call it a night. I turned off the lantern, closed the window, and drew all the shades, sealing myself in. The van was pitch black, the rain a constant drone. I slipped under my blankets, trying to relax, but sleep wouldn't come. The light, that fleeting glow, stuck in my mind, like a puzzle I couldn't solve. The rain worsened, hammering the van, and soon thunder rolled in, deep and rumbling. It was loud, shaking the windows, making sleep impossible. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind wandering to stories I'd read online. Van lifers stalked in the woods, strange encounters in national forests. I pushed them away, annoyed at myself for spiraling. Then, around midnight, I heard it. A sound distinct from the storm, sharp and deliberate. It was like a heavy footstep, crunching through wet leaves just outside the van, followed by the snap of a branch. My breath caught. I sat up, straining to hear over the rain. There it was again, a faint rustle, like someone moving close, circling the clearing. I grabbed my flashlight, my hands shaking, and flicked it on, keeping the beam low. I didn't dare lift the shades, afraid of what I might see, or what might see me. The van felt like a cage, its thin walls no match for whatever was out there. I waited, heart pounding, but the sound stopped. The silence was worse, heavy with possibility. I told myself it was an animal, a deer, a raccoon, something spooked by the storm. But then a new sound, a low, muffled voice, male, just loud enough to cut through the rain. It was outside, maybe 10 feet away, speaking in a harsh whisper, like he was talking to someone else. The words were unclear, swallowed by the storm, but the tone was urgent, almost angry. I froze, too scared to move. The voice stopped, and for a moment I thought I'd imagined it. Then, a creak. Metal this time, like someone brushing against the van's side door. My blood ran cold. I clutched the flashlight, my mind racing. Was it a camper? A ranger? Someone lost in the storm? But why whisper? Why not call out? I sat in the dark, paralyzed, praying they didn't know I was inside. The van's tinted windows and shades hid me, but they'd probably seen it parked here, assumed someone was in it. That thought made my skin crawl. If they knew I was alone, what did they want? Then, a knock. A single, sharp rap on the side door. I bit my lip to keep from gasping. A few seconds later, another knock, harder, deliberate. I didn't move, didn't breathe, hoping they'd think the van was empty. The knocking continued every few seconds, steady and insistent, like they knew I was there and wouldn't give up. Rain pounded the roof, thunder rumbled, but the knocks cut through, relentless. I thought about yelling, pretending I wasn't alone, but my voice felt trapped in my throat. What if there were two of them, like the voice suggested? What if they were armed? After what felt like forever, probably 5 minutes, though it seemed like hours, the knocking stopped. I held my breath, waiting. Then, the voice again, louder, right outside the door. "Sheriff's Department, open the door." My stomach dropped. A cop? Out here, in this storm? At midnight? It didn't add up. If it was really a sheriff, why hadn't they said so from the start? Why the whispering, the circling? I stayed silent, my mind screaming that this was a trick. The voice came again. "Ma'am, this is the sheriff. We need you to open up now." The ma'am sent a chill through me. They knew I was a woman, or they'd guessed. Either way, it felt wrong, like a predator testing the lock. The knocking resumed, faster, more aggressive, paired with the voice repeating, "Sheriff's Department, open the door." I crept to the window by the bed, my hands trembling as I lifted the shade a fraction of an inch. Through the rain-streaked glass, I saw a figure, tall, broad, dressed in dark clothes, no reflective gear, no badge, no patrol car lights. He was alone, or so it seemed, his shape blurred by the storm. He didn't look like a cop. I dropped the shade, my heart hammering. This wasn't help, this was danger. I had to get out. The van was my home, my safety. But staying felt like waiting to die. I weighed my options. Sit here, hoping they'd leave, or risk driving away. The road was muddy, treacherous, but I couldn't stay trapped. I slid into the driver's seat, keeping low, and fumbled with the keys. The knocking stopped, replaced by footsteps. 2 sets now, splashing through puddles, moving fast toward the front of the van. I turned the ignition, the engine roaring to life, and flipped on the headlights. For a split second, I saw them. 2 figures, one at the driver's window, the other near the hood, their faces obscured by hoods and rain. They froze, caught in the light, then bolted into the trees. I threw the van into gear, praying the tires wouldn't spin out. The mud sucked at the wheels, but I floored it, fishtailing onto the road. My headlights cut through the dark, illuminating nothing but trees and rain. I didn't look back, didn't dare, but I felt them watching, their presence lingering like a shadow. The drive out was a blur, the road slick and rutted, my hands white-knuckling the wheel. I kept expecting to see headlights behind me, or worse, figures in the road. But there was nothing, just the storm and my ragged breathing. When I hit the highway, I didn't stop until I reached a gas station 40 miles away, its fluorescent lights a lifeline. I parked under the brightest lamp, locked the doors, and sat there, shaking, until dawn. I called the local sheriff's office, my voice barely steady, and reported a suspicious encounter in the forest. They said no deputies had been out there, not in that weather, and promised to send a patrol when the storm cleared. I never heard back, and I didn't expect to. Places like that, they don't give up their secrets easily. I kept driving, putting Idaho behind me. But the memory clung like damp clothes. I couldn't sleep in the van for weeks, jumping at every sound, checking the locks obsessively. I scoured online forums, looking for similar stories. Van lifers stalked, fake cops in the woods, but found nothing that matched. The more I thought about it, the worse it got. Who were they? Drifters? Locals playing a sick prank? Something worse? That ma'am, the way they knew I was alone. It felt personal, like they'd been watching, waiting. I started wondering if they'd seen me earlier, maybe when I stopped for gas or groceries, if they'd followed me into the forest. The idea made my skin crawl. Van life was my freedom, my way of reclaiming my life. But that night stole something from me. I still travel, still chase the open road, but I'm different now, warier, less trusting. I stick to established campgrounds, always check for cell service, and keep a can of pepper spray by the door. The forest used to feel like home, but now it's a stranger, full of eyes I can't see. I think about those men, their whispers, their fake badges, and what might have happened if I'd opened the door. Sometimes, late at night, I hear that knock in my dreams, sharp and insistent, and I wake up gasping, checking the windows. If you're out there, living the van life or camping in the wild, be careful. The open road is beautiful, but it's not always safe. Some shadows don't need light to find you.